Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The 5 states that the Republicans can easily win back in 2024 to win the White House, whether that is Donald Trump or whether that is somebody like a Ron DeSantis type. And how do they do it exactly? How is it viable? I'm going to explain why. So we're going to start here. We're going to get right into it. I think that we're going to start off with a state, and a lot of people probably are either really expecting this or not expecting it at all. It was the third closest state in the 2020 election. It is also a state that trended right compared to the national environment, unlike Georgia and Arizona. The state of Wisconsin. We could put Wisconsin into the flip column because I think that's the first state that's going to flip. Now, Wisconsin, a lot of Wisconsin actually got redder, but you see a lot of the, wow counties, you see a little bit of a shift left, and that was able to push the state a little bit to the left. Now, I think that Biden's victory was a little bit of a fluke, and if you look at the educational demography behind the wow counties, you could kind of see that, these counties are still super majority non-college educated white voters. Now, Biden maxed out, you could say, with college-educated white voters, but with non-college white voters, Donald Trump still did very well, and there's still room to grow, especially in places like Washington County, which is actually bigger than Ozaukee. Ozaukee moved vastly to the left. Washington didn't move much at all. Waukesha moved to the left, but not as much as Ozaukee, but Dems are sort of getting kind of maxed out there. Now, Ron DeSantis, if he's the nominee, he would definitely do better because they didn't like Trump's personality or something, but still like statewide Republicans and will vote overwhelmingly Republican in the 2022 midterms. So couple that with these trends in a lot of these rural counties that are still, even in some cases light blue or light red. Now, these are going to get redder over time based off of trends. You could assume that, assuming the realignment is in full force. And college-educated white voters in the state, Dems are almost maxed with. A lot of them live in Milwaukee, parts of the WOW counties, but not so much, and places like Dane County and Madison. Outside of that, it is a fairly white rural state. And still there are, pockets of Hispanics here and there that Republicans, made a little bit of gain with here and there. I think the only precinct in Madison that really moved to the right was a Hispanic plurality one by the Beltline down there. So overall, Wisconsin, I think, is an easy state for the Republicans to flip. I think it is going to be arguably a state that may never go blue for the next 20 plus years or so. And you could say that 2008 Indiana was 2020 Wisconsin for Joe Biden. So that's my rationale behind Wisconsin. The second state I think that we're going to flip, this is going to be one that's going to come out of left field. Some of you guys might actually get a little bit antsy about it. Now, Nebraska's 2nd district is red because I assume it's going to be a gerrymander. I don't think we need to cover that. But the actual state that I think is going to be the next flip is Nevada. And that's going to come out of left field. And people are going to say, why Nevada? All these Californians are moving there. Well, that doesn't mean that they're not conservative Californians. The state has gotten actually redder compared to the national environment. It's gotten redder compared to just in general. It got redder in 2020. It moved right by a 0.2% or so. And Clark County moved right. And there's a lot of room to grow with some Hispanic voters. And there's a lot of white working class voters that live in these areas. And a lot more that are actually moving in from California that are actually going to push the state even further to the right. And Donald Trump may actually change his residency there if he decides to have Ron DeSantis be his VP. Overall, I think Nevada is an easy flip, especially with the Democratic Party essentially collapsing. Nevada was the Florida today of the Republicans, but for the Democrats, you had Harry Reid, a very good fit. He knew how to, have the inner workings of the party in the state down perfectly. Now you have this takeover from the Democratic Socialists of America type Democrats, and it's not really what it used to be. And Nevada, Las Vegas, it's kind of based. It is degenerate, but it's kind of like trad degenerate in a way. It's kind of based in a way. And overall, I think that it fairly is a culturally right place overall. And I think that if more Hispanics do decide to move over to the Republican Party, as we saw in the 2020 election, you even had the mayor switch parties in North Las Vegas as a result. I think it's possible. I think it is doable. And I think you're going to see it happen. So Nevada, I think that's going to be the second flip. The third flip, and by the way, these are kind of going in order of ease. So I think maybe you could say Pennsylvania could flip before Nevada, but Pennsylvania is the third state. And you could even argue that Pennsylvania would be first, especially if Kamala is the nominee, because Kamala Harris has virtually no appeal in the Rust Belt and Appalachia compared to even somebody like Joe Biden. Biden was actually from Pennsylvania. I mean, he did very well among Irish voters compared to Hillary Clinton, especially throughout the Northeast and Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris, I cannot see replicating that. Biden actually, when you look at the shift here, Trump did better across much of rural Pennsylvania. He's far from maxed out, and the fact is you have a lot of places in northeastern Pennsylvania not maxed out, and Biden, you look at him going back on promises, you look at him not getting anything done, you have the ability to frame him as an establishment politician that is ineffective, even more so than you used to be able to. I think that Biden would arguably lose the state again, and I really do believe that Kamala Harris would get trounced in it by 3 points or so. That's the way that I see it. And Philadelphia actually moved right because of Hispanic precincts, and the truth is you have a lot of room to grow throughout the eastern part of the state. Among a lot of union workers, especially as Democrats continue going down the path of becoming the party of the elite, the party of the suburban elite. And even so, in the suburbs, they are close to even max in some of these places. Not all these places, but some of these places, when you look at educational demography, they may do a little bit better in the Philly suburbs, but the Pittsburgh suburbs and parts of Scranton, I don't really see them doing much better. So as a result, I think Pennsylvania is the third flip on this list that needs to be analyzed. I think it will be the third easiest state to flip. Again, I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I'm saying this is sort of kind of the order of how it is going to unfurl on election night 2024, assuming Republicans start to flip some states based off of trends, based off of other electoral metrics and changes in demography and things like that. Now, we could even do this in the inverse, but I think that Republicans are actually having a high floor, assuming they'll be able to hold places such as Texas and Florida, North Carolina, as a result. So beyond that point, we've done the state of Pennsylvania. We've covered that. Up next, so already Republicans just need to flip 3 states to get to 271 electoral votes. It is not entirely that difficult. You could even argue that if they just flip Pennsylvania and Georgia, they would get there. And we'll get to Georgia in a little bit. Obviously, the state is moving to the left. I do expect it to be going down the pathway of Virginia, at least at the presidential level, by the end of the decade, essentially. So up next is the great state of Arizona. Now, Arizona, people are going to say that's moving left too, and it is. But again, if the national environment moves right by a few points, I mean, Arizona would be a red state, actually. But the bottom line is you can win Arizona by running up the margins in places like Yavapai and Pinal County, and you look at some of the trends, and it's possible. It is quite possible for the Republicans to actually win the state without Maricopa County, but that's not saying that they can't win back Maricopa County. Again, 2020 we saw record turnout. I'm not exactly sure we're going to see that again. We'll have to see. But beyond that point, if they just do a little bit better in Maricopa County, they don't even have to win it back, but then they technically would win the state. It was just 11,000 votes in Arizona. So do keep that in mind. That is the 4th state on this list. The 5th state on this list is actually the state of Georgia. Now, the state of Georgia has been moving vastly away from the Republican Party. I mean, if you look at the Atlanta area in particular, even Mitt Romney didn't do as well as John McCain in some of the Atlanta suburbs, even though he did do better in some places outstate compared to McCain. But as you can see here, Biden, the skin of his teeth, what is that, 11,000, 12,000 votes or so. This is not a state that is favorable to Republicans when you take trends into account, but it is not impossible for them to win it one last time, especially if they find somebody a little bit less hostile in the suburbs compared to Trump. But I mean, if Trump does have a good night, he may actually win the state of Georgia as well, even though I think Trump would probably win Michigan before he'd win the state of Georgia. I think DeSantis would win Georgia before he would win the state of Michigan. So either way, it's a wash. In terms of Michigan, how would Republicans win back Michigan? They would have to do even better in a place like Macomb County, which is possible. A lot of light pink upstate, a lot of that could easily turn into, medium and darker red. And that is very, very possible for them to do, depending on the candidate, depending on the way that the campaign is run, depending on how they reach those white working class voters, of which there are many. So this is something we are going to have to see in 2022, how Republicans do, what the trends move, because the trends are ever changing. And we are going to have to take a deep dive after the midterms. We'll take a deep dive before the midterms. We'll take a deep dive before the 2024 election. But as of right now, I think we're going to say Georgia and Michigan are going to be the tie for that fifth state that could flip. You guys can comment down below. Also, I'm sure we're going to get people in the comments saying Minnesota, New Hampshire, Maine even. I don't even know. But I think that I actually think New Hampshire could flip if it's DeSantis and Kamala, or maybe even Trump and Kamala, because they really despise incumbents, and Trump was kind of an incumbent, so that was one of the reasons why he didn't do as well in the state as he did in 2016. Also, the third-party vote, the Libertarians. The Libertarians are all up in New Hampshire, and a lot of them that actually vote non-Libertarian Party, they tend to be anti-incumbent, so that needs to be taken into consideration. Minnesota, I'm sorry. I'm black-pilled on the Minnesota question up there. I just can't see Republicans taking back the state, given the Twin Cities and how the fact that the cities were burned down to the ground over the summer last year, and the Democrats were rewarded with a massive election victory in the state, similar to Obama's over Romney, actually. It's astounding. So Republicans may do better in the rural areas, but the Twin Cities, I mean, unless you find somebody that could really shake the boat and tap into that voting base somehow without caving on the issues, then Minnesota's probably a lost cause. So beyond that point, that doesn't mean that it's impossible if there's a massive red wave. Even New Mexico, there was a poll that came out the other day that had the Republicans winning the governorship. So, but then again, polls are polls, and we're going to take them with a grain of salt either way, but we'll have to see. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.